Anxiety isn't weakness, it's misused power. The problem isn't that you feel too much. The problem is that no one taught you how to face what you feel without flinching. So you overthink, you scroll, you rehearse fake scenarios, while real life slips away. Modern anxiety doesn't scream, it infects, and if you don't build weapons against it, you drown slowly with a confident face. This is not a self-help video. This is a return to command. Epictetus didn't have technology, therapy, or time to collapse. He had only one choice: build an inner citadel or break. And that's what you're about to do. Not by running, not by numbing, but by arming yourself with 5 Stoic weapons, forged in pressure, made for now. Are you ready? Good. Then breathe and step into your citadel. There's a moment right before anxiety hits where your mind reaches for control. But control of what? Your boss's tone, your partner's silence, the next email, the next crisis, the next random headline that lands in your feed like a punch to the gut. That's how modern anxiety traps you. It makes you believe that the solution is out there in their approval, out there in their reaction, out there in fixing what's not even broken yet. And that belief, that's how you surrender your command. Epictetus was a crippled slave in Rome. He had no wealth, no freedom, no bodyguards. And yet, when people came to him for strength, he didn't talk about the outer world. He said, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus can take my will." That's not poetry. That's a declaration of psychological independence. He called it the inner citadel, a fortress built entirely inside you, where your values live, where your choices live, where no opinion, no insult, no chaos can enter. Unless you open the gate. Here's the truth. Anxiety thrives where boundaries are missing, not physical ones, internal ones. When you try to control what isn't yours, you become reactive, erratic, exhausted. But when you guard what is yours, your perception, your intention, your judgment, you begin to generate calm even in the fire. So how do you build this citadel? You start with one daily ritual, the separation drill. Each morning before the world invades, you write down 3 things outside your control today, 3 things within your control, simple, but devastatingly clarifying, because the moment you name what's not yours, you reclaim what is. You stop trying to control the weather and start adjusting your posture. You stop begging for certainty and start strengthening your response. And slowly, your nervous system stops spiraling, because now you've given it orders, not feelings, orders. You've said, "That's not my battlefield, this is." And that's the first weapon. Command over your attention, command over your scope, command over what you allow to shape your state. Most people build lives. You build walls around the essential, not to isolate, but to clarify, to remind yourself, moment by moment, no one controls my judgment, not the algorithm, not the tone of a stranger, not the panic of the day. You do. From your citadel, weapon 1 is built. Now guard it. Panic doesn't start with the event. It starts with your interpretation. A message appears. You feel your heart jump. Your mind spins the worst-case scenario before you've even read the second line. It's not the moment that breaks you, it's the speed. Modern anxiety is built on acceleration, notifications, deadlines, immediate replies, always-on availability. You don't get time to see, you just react. And over time, that becomes a habit, not just of behavior, but of identity. You become the guy who handles it all, fast, responsive, always on edge, but inside you're unraveling. Not because life is hard, but because you never learned to pause. Here's what Epictetus would say: it is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Judgment requires space. Interpretation requires stillness. But you're reacting in milliseconds. You check your phone, feel something shift in your gut, and before you breathe, you're already solving a problem that doesn't exist, or wasn't even yours to begin with. So here's the weapon, the strategic pause. Before you react to anything, especially triggers, you give yourself 3 seconds not to escape, not to calm down, to ask one question. What's truly being threatened here? Your safety, your ego, your status, your illusion of control? Ask, and don't move until you answer. Because once you know what's actually being triggered, you reclaim the ability to respond instead of submit. That's what makes this a weapon. It doesn't stop anxiety from arriving. It stops it from taking command. You become your own firewall. Not cold, not numb, strategic. This is how leaders operate. They don't move at the pace of panic. They move at the pace of clarity, and clarity doesn't rush. Epictetus trained his students to examine their impressions, to interrupt the automatic, to delay the inner stampede, not because they were soft, because they were precise. Your task is not to be chill. Your task is to be accurate, and accuracy requires space, even 3 seconds of space, because in those 3 seconds, you separate the event from the story. You separate the stimulus from the spiral. You separate the man from the panic. And that's what makes the second weapon real, a pause that protects your posture. You still act, you still reply, you still handle life, but you no longer move like a slave to your nerves. You move like a man who chooses. You move like a man who commands. Pause, ask, then act. Modern life sold you a lie, that peace comes from comfort, that stability comes from ease, that if you can just remove all friction, all uncertainty, all tension, you'll finally feel calm. But here's the paradox. The more you chase comfort, the weaker your nervous system becomes. You soften, you flinch at small stress, you interpret every tension as a threat. And over time, anxiety becomes your default. Not because life is brutal, but because you've stopped building capacity. Epictetus knew this. He didn't just tolerate discomfort, he chose it. He trained barefoot in the cold. He ate plain food. He let go of luxuries, not to suffer but to sharpen his command. He said, "It is not events that disturb us, but our view of them." And your view? It's shaped by your threshold. The less you face discomfort by choice, the more you collapse under it by surprise. This is why so many men today feel fragile, even when their lives look strong. They have money, they have status, they have tools, but they've lost the edge. Not the angry edge, not the fake alpha performance, the inner edge, the kind that can walk through stress without begging for relief. That edge is built through voluntary discomfort. You introduce friction into your day on purpose. Not to prove something, to rewire your relationship with pressure. Start small, a cold shower instead of warm. Skip a meal and observe your reaction. Walk without headphones. Speak truth where you normally stay silent. Discomfort doesn't have to be dramatic. It has to be deliberate. The point is not to suffer. It's to send a message to your nervous system. I choose this. I don't panic here. I adapt here. Because once your body sees discomfort as training, not threat, anxiety loses one of its strongest weapons, surprise. You stop interpreting tension as danger. You stop expecting life to feel soft. And when life does get hard, you meet it like a man who's already been there. This is what Epictetus meant by freedom, not pleasure, not status, but a will that doesn't break when comfort leaves the room. You can still enjoy luxury, but you're no longer addicted to it. You can still rest, but it's earned, not chased. And your mind, it becomes a place where discomfort no longer dictates your mood, but reinforces your mission. This is the third weapon. Turning friction into fuel, tension into training, voluntary discomfort into inner dominance. Most people seek relief. You seek resilience, not as a performance, as your default, because you know something they don't. Comfort is not peace, it's a trap, and you've chosen to outgrow it. Anxiety shrinks your world. One message, one mistake, one awkward silence, and suddenly that's all there is. You forget who you are. You forget what matters. You forget that this moment, this tiny spike in your nervous system, is just that tiny. But anxiety doesn't let you zoom out. It locks you into the frame. It tricks you into believing that what feels urgent is important. And when that happens, you lose the power of proportion. Epictetus understood this trap. He watched emperors panic over politics. He watched merchants collapse over rumors. He saw how men turned insects into monsters because they refused to step back. So he taught something called the view from above, not as a metaphor, as a mental position, because when you change your vantage point, you change your response. Right now, your view is narrow. You're zoomed into a conversation, a deadline, a comment thread, a bank account. That tunnel vision feeds anxiety. It makes you forget everything outside the moment. And that forgetting, it creates panic. But what if you rose above the frame? What if, for a few minutes, you looked at your life the way a Stoic philosopher would, from altitude, from distance, from truth? Tonight, try this. Sit down, close your eyes, and mentally float above your day. Start with the room you're in, then the building, then the city, the country, the planet. Watch yourself from above. See the street, the traffic, the timelines, the humans rushing through imagined emergencies. See your own face, tense, tired, distracted. Now zoom further. See your week, your month, your year. Zoom again. See your entire life, from childhood to now. Then zoom one last time. and see your life as one thread in a web of billions, a breath, a blink, a moment, not to feel small, but to remember this problem isn't everything, this pressure isn't forever, this spike of emotion is not a verdict, it's just a ripple. And you're the ocean. This is what the Stoics knew. They didn't minimize emotion. They put it in context, because once you restore context, you restore choice. You remember that you don't have to obey every inner alarm. You don't have to panic over every alert. You can breathe because now you see. And when you see from above, anxiety loses its disguise. It becomes what it always was, a flash of perception, not a prophecy. That's the fourth weapon. Perspective, forged in stillness, restored by elevation. The man who sees clearly does not panic quickly, because he understands. The moment is real, but it is not absolute. You've been trained to measure everything by results, the grade, the numbers, the reply, the reaction. If it works, you're fine. If it fails, you spiral. If they like it, you relax. If they don't, you start shrinking inside your own skin. This is the modern equation, self-worth times outcome. And anxiety, it feeds on that equation like oxygen. You don't just fear failure. You fear what it means about you. You fear being exposed as not enough, not fast enough, not liked enough, not secure enough. But here's what Epictetus taught, and it cuts deeper than motivational fluff. There is only one path to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will. What's beyond your power? The outcome. You can influence, you can prepare, you can lead, but the final result never yours. What is yours? How you showed up, why you acted, whether you honored your values in the face of pressure. This is the shift, from chasing approval to choosing alignment, from fearing the scoreboard to respecting your stance. You don't control whether she texts back. You control whether you spoke truth. You don't control if the deal closes. You control if you negotiated with clarity. You don't control how they interpret you. You control if you moved with integrity. And here's the truth. When you make peace with that, anxiety loses its grip. Not because you stop caring, but because you stop begging for outcomes to validate your worth. You return to something deeper than success. You return to honor. And honor, unlike outcome, is always within reach. It's the decision you make when no one is watching. It's the way you speak when it would be easier to lie. It's the standard you hold, not to impress, but to remain whole. This is your final weapon, an internal compass that never shakes, because once you live by honor, you become immune to the chaos of results. You can win or lose, rise or fall, be loved or misunderstood, but you are whole, and nothing external can fracture that. Start a simple practice today. At the end of each day, ask yourself, did I act from fear or from principle? Did I chase validation or stand in honor? Write down one moment where you chose integrity, even if no one saw it, and let that become your quiet proof. The world measures success by reaction. You measure it by alignment. Most people perform. You stand. Most people bend. You hold. Because you know now, the outcome is noise, the honor is yours. You don't need more motivation, you need weapons. And now, you have 5, not to eliminate anxiety, to face it with posture. Most people try to manage their panic. You've chosen to lead through it. You've built an inner citadel. You've reclaimed your pause. You've trained your tolerance to pressure. You've expanded your perspective. And you've chosen honor over outcome. That's not philosophy. That's power. Silent, real, and earned. Start with 1. Apply it today. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Act with precision in this one. If this helped you see anxiety with new eyes and gave you tools to face it with strength, leave a like, subscribe, and stay close. This isn't a trend. This is a return to command, and you're not done. You're just getting started.